thought that it was a matter of real concern that planted stories intended to serve a national purpose abroad came home and were circulated here and believed here, because this would mean that the CIA could manipulate the news in the United States by channeling it through some foreign country. Now, we're looking at that very carefully.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
All right, there it was. There it is. You guys heard it. You guys heard that. Now that's an older piece that Ben had suggested. Why is that even relevant? Maybe even today. Like, what do you?
Oh my gosh! Here on the Patriot Hour and the channel, we tell you guys all the time. Our team, we're doing garage talk. We're always kind of getting back and forth, and some of these old things. Mike and I, we always get into old conspiracy videos and that kind of stuff. And this is not a conspiracy. This is actually, they came out, it was, I think it was
Operation Mockingbird and all that, right?
And this kind of stuff. And we're well aware of that. So that's like a household name nowadays. Oh,
now,
Operation Mockingbird.
Were they slapped on the wrist back then and maybe, oh, we won't do it no more, or like,
Well, again, this kind of goes with what happened. That those were open sessions. That's so right. Like 90 or 95% of the questions that we wanted to know were held in executive sessions. And so honestly, I don't think there's records of it even being what happened in an executive order being put to the public, just like we have now, of where these people are screaming for, we need to go all open up, I'm going to totally open everything, or it needs to be an executive order. This isn't, we're going to be seeing tonight later on in the episode how we go over how certain individuals in certain positions claim, well, I can make this classified, this not classified. We know that the president, by virtue of his own mouth, can make things classified or declassified. So there's
folks, and that's huge. Like you just said there, we also found out today, well, last night I was watching, and it's come out now that we know that the 4 FISAs used on Trump, that 3 of them have been deemed illegal. Like the last 3, because they continued it. They had the first initial, then they had 3 more, so 4 in total.
They were hungry.
And the 3 extras on the tail end that kept going back to no more evidence to get the new one, because you always have to have like a little bit more evidence. Like, what did you gain in the last 3 months since we gave you the last one? Oh, not much. So they kept using that. So the last 3 had been found no good, I guess, and now they're looking back at the first one.
Illegal, honestly.
And Horowitz, they said that this all would have been over a few weeks ago. Everything's a little off timing because the FBI was holding. They hid back the FISA. They hid paperwork from Horowitz that he requested, and it was from some lady that interviewed this source, and her paperwork was totally damning, saying this guy can't be trusted. He's political. He's the FBI lady they sent to interview this guy, and so they buried that and they hid it from Horowitz, the IG guy that was investigating this whole, and they had it the whole page classified except for 3 words out of the whole page, and they had it put for 22 years before it would be ever seen.
The ultimate slow roll of the information.
This is all just coming out.
And this is just highlights getting up to you to what meat's going on, because if we know it's coming out now factually that the other 3 FISAs that were filed after the first FISA are now found to be based off of illegal, and because the premises were faulty and that they were false accusations
so hold on.
To begin with.
Let's just say somebody said, when do we see arrest? Well, when do you normally see arrest? Like right now, we're just getting all of these little things out. Like what is the process typically? I don't know. You're gonna get.
Well, the basic process is a crime is committed, then the evidence is gathered to enough evidence should be gathered to gain a reasonable not without a reasonable doubt, what they call it, and then you go in front of a judge, and a judge is the sentence.
So what if this Horowitz and Huber, like we've been saying, I got videos from a year ago that we talked about, they've been doing all this stuff in the background.
470 investigators that's been on their team or something like that.
And if this is starting to leak out on the mainstream medias now, and I'm not sure about all the channels, this is stuff coming out of the Capitol, the news. That Fox is kind of reporting on a lot of it. A lot of these little clips that we can go to are Fox people, not all of them, but a few. And there's Carter from her website, Dan Bongino. We know these people, but they're the ones reporting on these things that are keep popping out. And folks, it leads to something huge, like we've been saying, of course.
Well, the fact that it's even hitting the mainstream right now, of course, we know it's almost like, like the stealth bomber was the absolute secret for 50 years, and it came out later.
And even Q said there's the media can only not report on this like
for so long.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then they have a choice. It's either like, and some of them we're seeing now, right? Like Trump said, I'm surprised the New York Times did a decent article on it.
That's a good job there, buddy.
They're starting to spin here and there because it's evident now.
So now, what a lot of people were kind of screaming and banging their heads almost a year ago. It's like, we want to see public. We want to see. I won't be happy until I hear it on CNN. And which is understandable, because that's what Mike and I were almost. We wanted the same thing. We know that our short-term impulses need to be fed at times when it comes to like immediate gratification. We understand that, but with this kind of stuff, I mean, we saw laws being broken with Clinton astronomically. Like, this is like beyond, like, this is like you and I, IT security stuff was like, it's a no-brainer. These are company policies that the most normie person.
The public just heard emails and thought, hey, what a big deal. It's just emails.
Electronic communication. It's like, so yes, exactly. So we've seen laws broken with other people at high power and nothing has happened. But what's happening now is this is literally like an onion that you cut open. It has many layers. We're starting to see the layers of corruption and literally how deep it goes, and the processes that these corruptors actually went through.
Yes.
They say that the last 3 FISAs were deemed illegal, and there's a current investigation for the first FISA, which is like the big doozy of them all. And if they're all found to be withholding information from Horowitz and then going to a judge to get, let's forge signatures.
Well, and I guess the judge had asked too, do you guys have anything bad on this Carter Page or the Steele dossier guy?
Okay,
it's like, no, we don't know. Like, they hid all that stuff too. We knew that. Like, they hid the letter that they went ahead and classified real quick, and then put into a safe and said 22 years or something it can be. And they didn't show that to the judge. They didn't say that it was paid for by the DNC and Clinton. They didn't say they withhid.
Yes.
So you can't. It's almost like the judge was dirty too. It's like, no, they withheld. And there was only 2 ways for that to be: that the judge was part of it, or that he
went off of evidence that wasn't that wasn't enough. He's like, okay, I see this collusion here, that there's no more evidence. Well,
but it's almost like, it's not like, well, we just didn't give it to him. He might ask, like, is there anything more? No.
And there's trust,
now
because
that's
you're
lying.
under oath,
So there's somebody somebody that lied.
Of course.
So see how these crimes stack up a little differently. So when you ask about arrest, well, typically that comes at a certain point of. And if we're starting to find out at this point, that means it's already all been investigated. We're basically, the news is getting the little tidbits of news leaks from people because investigations are wrapping up. I think the Horowitz one, he's either done now with this whole, because we just found this out yesterday. So again, I would say that that's probably done now, that he got that. Well, we heard about it, that they got
on the record. It's like, okay, so that's almost like it's another little pinprick in their hot air balloon.
If they find this first FISA, the actual judges that are looking, the investigator, they find this to be illegal, then so what we had was the Obama administration basically spied on an opposition political party, which was Trump at the time, a civilian, and an American to boot it all, because we were always told, as this whole process came up with the spying, it was like, we have grave concern about our own security. Oh, no, never. It would always be for terrorists and
overseas
other
terrorists.
Soils
of other countries. We even have agreements with other countries like Australia.
Now, one might argue that it was done. Well, he was talking to Russia. So if we weren't listening to Trump, because still to this day they say it wasn't Trump, it was the people around him, and that they were working with exactly what you said. So
exactly,
if you're going to set up a lie, you're not going to do it to where the lie breaks the law.
Yeah.
Your lie looks very good and well built.
Very edible.
Very well built.
So the people involved are the lawbreakers, not the premise of what you're trying to explain. Because the fact that he talked to Russia is a no-brainer. He did, and his personal before he had business dealings with multiple countries. Nobody talks about his business dealings with other countries. So when you talk about that, you try to spin it to like, this latest little farce is he lost billions of dollars of his personal money, his taxes, and if you have no clue about how taxes work, which we know that 90% of you out there understand exactly how taxes and bankruptcy works in your personal level, maybe not so much at a commercial level.
Well, the whole thing is like we said, the only way out of this for the past Obama administration that they spied on this person would be to have got the guilty, to found the dirt. That's the only way you can almost be like, well, at least it worked out. It's kind of like, all the time people get, searched or something, maybe have some drugs on them, and, the lawyers for that person might argue, certain laws that you can't search a person without a warrant. And the judge is like, okay, yeah, we violated his certain amendment, but what'd you find real quick?
We
anyway,
actually found some
heroin and a quarter pound of meth, and it's like, okay, and the judge in honor of that is like, well, we're happy that, and they let the law.
We'll take the hit on this constitutional rights infringement because we know that it's a greater good to take the pound of meth off the street, and if
that was the end of the story, I mean, there'd still be lots of people upset. You'd probably be upset to a degree. And it's like, well, you never had the right to start doing it to him, but you found out all this crazy stuff. Okay, but they didn't. So that means they were wrong. And it's like, well, we were investigating something that we heard. It's just, they promised us that they never use this big, we're the largest intelligence gathering system in the world, where the tax funded to the gills, black budgets. If we don't give them enough, they're going to go make it on their own somehow. We've seen it time and time again. Sell drugs
in movies. We've also seen interviews,
witness accounts.
If you go against the intelligence agencies, you will pay because you can't. They're above the Constitution.
Oh yeah.
We
saw Schumer threaten Trump with that on that one CNN.
Exactly.
He's like, I'll tell you what, this guy, he's going after these agencies. They have 7 ways from Sunday to come at you and get you, and they will. And boom, that was like a threat.
It's like what is it? Are you an old spook trying to say something, trying to get something going? It's like.
Well, Trump said that in a tweet probably 2 years ago. There's shady people in the political system trying to get me, and everyone blasting them. These news, CNN, like, come on now, what do you think? And they had a whole panel talking about it for 2 hours, 2 days, about that tweet and how he's nuts, and here it is.
And so you think about the very first clip we showed at the beginning of this episode, which you have these CIA attaché, is what they're really called. They don't call them agents. They're like, they're international attaché, politicians or whatever that have a secret, whatever. Anyways, NGOs, yeah. So they even have you telling them, they're like, no, hey, we submit pieces, we work with this, yes, we pay them. Even now, what's happening when Trump is talking about getting our sovereignty back, building up our borders. Well, you can't have sovereignty without walls. Good fences make good neighbors. The Texans will tell you about that. They know all about that kind of good stuff. And so you look at what's happening, and then you have this disinformation. We don't call them what they called them back in the 50s and 60s. We call them like, oh, you just got some trolls. You're getting trolled. Well, we already know, and it's not classified, that the military has a section of cyber intelligence that does trolling. They look at social media. They look at every aspect of different things they can get into for any potential risks that would be pointed towards the American people and the government apparatus, and there's those who are involved in those institutions, if you want to call those. So it's like, it's crazy.
Whoops, hold on. I didn't mean to
Director
pause
Comey spent his career in the justice system.
No, this is all tying into this whole mocking thing.
Let me turn this down. This is now the reason we're going to show a little bit of this is just to show. Now we know Comey is a hack. He's not really a cop. Who are the heads of the FBI? They're not ever true field agents that work their way up and They are handpicked.
They were the desk jockeys. They were the poster childs that were able to be liaison between the agency and the public.
And he has no police or law enforcement background whatsoever.
No.
Like I think he came from like Hershey or something.
This non-governmental organization needed a CEO to actually take care of business. And it's interesting. You guys are saying why no arrest? We're showing you CNN. Now, we all know CNN, CIA, all this propaganda, all this other kind of stuff. You know this is the worst propaganda machine, mainstream media, news that's out there. We say all the time, oh, CNN this, CNN this. Now, watch what old Vanderbilt here, Anderson Vanderbilt Cooper. Let's see what he has to say when it comes to James Comey and some of the questions, because this isn't Anderson's personal questions. He's not like, I deeply feel convicted to ask you these questions.
And
he's
somebody
got his handler in his ear, and he's
now I kept thinking he goes off on him. That was the one from a year ago that we also have.
That we will, yes. Yeah. We're going to be comparing what happened, 2 nights ago, you said?
Yeah, it was like 2-3 nights ago.
2 nights ago to a year ago.
All right, we got a bunch of different times here. Let's pay attention to Comey a little bit. Now, look, folks, he's shaking in his boots. Comey, he knows it's coming down. He's on a PR
softening mission to soften the blow
to get the narrative ahead of the crimes. So we're gonna go to a couple different times here. We'll start with. Might as well try to go in some kind of order. I think 5:30.
Okay, 5 minutes and 30 seconds in this interview. And we just want you guys just to kind of pay attention to what's the questions that were asked, his facial movements, how he answers. It's really easy. You don't have to be a genius or some type of investigator or anything like that to understand when somebody is absolutely trying to find a story to tell you.
We'll be starting law school this fall. Sabrina?
Good evening, Mr. Comey. The New York Times reported that the FBI sent an investigator posing as an assistant to meet with a Trump aide, George Papadopoulos, in 2016. Does that qualify as spying?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on a particular investigative step because that's for the Bureau to do, and I'm not in the government any longer. But the FBI doesn't spy to begin with. The FBI investigates.
Wrong.
And you got to remember where we were.
Now that we'll stop it from time to time. Yeah,
yes.
FBI doesn't spy. We technologically surveil. This is just
what do they call it? They call it offensive investigative techniques.
Okay, you guys made up a new word. That's
word porn, kung fu word porn.
One sounds malicious. They don't like it. Now it's like, well, what if somebody infiltrated your thing and they were from Russia? They were spying. So they'd use the word at that point.
The Ruskies are spying.
Yeah.
In the end of July of 2016, we knew the Russians were engaged in a massive effort to attack our democracy. And then we learned from an allied ambassador that one of President-elect Trump's, or candidate Trump's advisors had been talking to a Russian representative long before that about dirt they had on Hillary Clinton that the Russians wanted to make available. We all should have been fired if when we learned that we didn't investigate to figure out, is there a connection between any Americans and this Russian effort? And the FBI, in my view, took very reasonable steps, careful steps to try and understand, is that true? And I can't believe Republicans would have wanted it any other way. And we acted in a responsible, limited, and constrained way. I'm proud of the way we
limited and
constrained. You freaking dug through his whole life and so far. I mean, we've done it, in the most minimal possible way.
And I believe, and you see how he always
it's been a 2-year circus on the earth.
He premises every answer with I believe, in my opinion, and he'll bounce between his. Yeah. I was a former FBI.
The way I
credentials.
Perceived.
I'm just a civilian.
The situation. This is a funny thing, folks. There's laws in place, like we've talked about before. Like if a judge is, in your local town, even your judge, and somebody comes in that is like, oh, that's my nephew. Hey, nephew. Hey, don't worry about it. But then tell everyone like, oh, don't worry, I'm not gonna be biased on, what's his crime? Stealing from the local,
Oh, Johnny don't steal. Yeah. I've known him for 15 years.
So you don't give that judge the
authority to rule over the the case that he has personal investment.
Who else did this? This is very similar to the Peter Strzok. It's like, well, what about your bias? My bias never, not one time did I bring it in to work with me.
I believe my bias never came into my. You see how he's using. Yeah. He premises, and the same thing with Comey. He premises all of his.
John Kerry yesterday did it with a tweet when Trump was like, "Hey, he broke the Logan Act. He's going overseas. He's talking to these countries, and he's broken the Logan Act." And John Kerry tweets out, "I did not break the Logan Act. Case closed. That's it. Period."
You stop talking
about
that.
You know, who gets to do that? You know, when you're accused of a crime, we're going to investigate it. Evidently, foreigners came out back to our country and said, "Yeah, I was in the room and this guy was talking some." You know, like it's coming out or it's already been known. But
yeah, it's still like you read the Logan Act of what, like was it like
1919 or
1719? There you go. And it tells very clearly, no matter if you're in government or you're associated with government, or you're just a civilian and you go to a foreign country.
Yeah, it's like, well, Kerry, did you go over to Iran? Well, yeah, I was there vacationing. Did you happen to go vacation and maybe go stop by the consulate and talk with the people over there? Yeah, I might have. Man, it seems a little odd. Like you're a foreign person in government in the U.S. too, right? Yeah. So maybe it looks really bad that you broke the law, but I didn't. You're going to have to listen to me. I'm going to tell you right now. No, I didn't.
End of story.
End of story. Period. Move on. It's like, wow, Trump could say, no, there's no Trump-Russia collusion. Can we move on? No, oh no, sir. We're going to have 4 investigations. It's going to take about 2 years.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a whole bunch of circus around it, right?
Nothing burgers the whole way.
And the word spying, which is obviously a word that the president has used as well.
I can't explain it. I mean, the only explanation I can think of is he used it because the president uses it, which is really disappointing.
Why did Barr use the word spying?
He knows better than that. And knows that the
See, Comey also thinks he's the only one in the room never wrong. They've said this, like, this guy's got a complex of like, so now Trump, the president of the United States, said it. This attorney general said it, and 4 other people said it.
Really disappointing.
No,
he knows better than that, and knows that the FBI conducts electronic surveillance by going to federal judges.
I thought you just said the FBI doesn't spy. Well, what's electronic surveillance?
Well, that's the other thing. This whole thing now, they're letting them talk and give their answers of why and how they did the FISA. The bigger story is before they did it all the legal way we're going to get into. Mm-hmm. We all talked about it, folks. Mike Rogers, Admiral Rogers, the one that was in charge of the query system for the whole spying system.
The actual
all right, this is a true patriot.
Yes.
That sat down one day and decided to, like, let me do my quarter job here. I got
doing his job, which is what everybody, just a normal patriot.
And you're able to see where people are logging in from the certain places around the country that have access to the system, that they're allowed to log in. And in the U.S., we track each and every person with a login.
So easy.
You're attached with credentials and you are tracked. So when you log in, it timestamps you. The only way to subvert that would be make sure there's no cameras in the room and maybe use somebody else's login. But they're probably using fingerprint stuff at this point, biometrics.
It's crazy.
Now the way to subvert that is to go overseas and use one of the Five Eyes, which we will talk about as well. We've talked about, but folks, that's it. So I think the play right now in the next few weeks is he's telling, this is why we go by the rules and the books. And then it's like, okay, boom. Well, they were doing this before. Now, it might have not involved Comey and all the people they drug in when they wanted to go the legal route, which was the appearance of the legal route.
That's true.
So when they were spying
there as well.
So there was truly spying going on, folks. Now, the only way we'd be able to forgive this is if they would have found something, I guess. But now it's like, nope, they didn't.
So what was it?
And actually, they made it all up. That's even,
It's even worse because you can't. That's almost like, it's like if somebody files false charges on you, you have the right to actually return files, falsified, defamation of character, false and legalities, payments for.
And and it did interfere with an election. I think it really did. The whole Russia. I mean, and I'm not saying Russia didn't. I'm sure we had Russia interference in the 2016. I'm sure we had China, Iran,
Syria, Vietnam. I mean, name them. You name them. That's like natural. That's just normal SOPs for.
But we also had democratic interference in our 2016. So it's like it is domestic interference,
not foreign.
There we go. Domestic interference. We had the Russia. Lie that was created by the DNC and the deep state
was
hurt the 2018 election.
Oh my gosh,
they probably won some judges or
why
states.
did the House get so huge?
Yes.
And we know that the fight was for the Senate because, here's a fun question. Without asking all you guys out there, look at the chats real quick. How many senators are there in the, do we have in the government?
How many what now, would you say?
How many senators? So just ask the people out there. How many senators are there?
There you go. Anyone know?
What's
First one
going
to
on?
answer.
We'll give a shout out. I
Yeah,
guess.
domestic hurts way worse. Like Elle said, domestic is way worse.
Yes.
Why would somebody say, no, I would be more concerned with Russia, putting some Facebook ads. They gave the numbers. The numbers are so minute.
Love in Texas, 100. You're awesome.
All right,
Just
they got
you
it.
got there.
Love
Yeah,
in
awesome.
Texas.
Now,
Lots of people got it.
Yeah, lots of people. Now you know why it's 100, right? 2 per state, right? And how many states is there?
State.
50. So, does that feel equal? Well, yes, that does feel equal when they all of us say so. Why is it the House is so disproportionately large? Because that goes off different numbers, and that's where you have population in some states, in some cities, in some districts. They want to have the illegal vote count, and now we're finding out that some people maybe didn't quite belong where they needed to be belonging at. This idea of subverting the public for either personal gain or for gaining of your handlers is what Comey is what we're going to really be breaking down here. What was the next time?
Was this one over? Hold on, let me make sure. What was he talking about?
But sending an investigator undercover to meet with somebody who is connected to the campaign, they claimed he was later on just a coffee boy. That is an extreme step, no?
No, it's a reasonable.
No.
That was the guy,
Spying on
Papadopoulos, who was the subject
American.
of the information we got from the Australians, that he had talked
From a foreign
to
government.
the Russians.
Did you sign off on the investigator going?
Yes,
I
he
don't
did,
remember
but he
talking
don't
about that
remember now.
particular
See how he don't
Yes,
remember?
yeah, I remember.
This
but-
dude's sharp on everything else. No, he was involved over here with his third uncle's cousin's brother.
Get somebody
But
close
this-
to the
I don't
person.
recall.
Comey, what did
See
you
if
do
they'll
that day? Did you
confirm
sign that? I don't recall that certain.
what we
This
heard from the Australians.
How involved were you overall overseeing the investigation? Because again, this is an investigation where, at this point, on the Papadopoulos,
He plays stupid again, folks. Listen.
Donald Trump had already been named the candidate for the Republican Party.
Yeah, I was involved the way the director should be involved, briefed on it on a regular basis, but the director never runs an investigation.
BS.
But they kept me closely informed because I
BS.
told them this is
Closely
important.
informed.
I want it kept very close hold. But
I
do
want
what you
be-
need to do under our authorities to figure out whether.
So you're
there's
saying
something
you're
to
not sure if you knew they were sending somebody undercover to talk to Papadopoulos?
Well, I don't want to confirm. I want to leave it to the FBI to confirm what investigative steps they took. That news article wasn't, I don't think, based on an official release. So I don't want to comment on particular steps. But in general, they would tell me we're
Slithery.
following through to try
don't
to
wanna
understand
get any legal.
whether there's
I don't wanna get
evidence
any
to
legal,
establish-
He already is.
The Inspector General, the Attorney
You
General,
don't
they're
think-
obviously now looking into the origins of the investigation, into the
Think he
president
lied
and
or
his
anything?
campaign. Are you confident you did everything by the book and that the FBI
Yeah,
the
I
people around
am.
you did everything by the
End
book?
of story.
Yes.
End of
No doubt
story.
in my mind, but that doesn't mean I'm against review of it. That's totally fine.
So you think
Oh,
the Inspector
it's
General
coming, buddy.
will find
That
out
is
that you
happening.
were
It's already
I don't
happening.
Yes,
think so.
sir.
At least not that I know of. But if they do, they do, and they should be transparent about it.
If they do,
You've
they
spoken
do.
to
Oh, well,
people within the FBI.
I would like 'em not to.
Please.
With
With cherry on top, please.
And that they're bracing for what may be uncovered.
And they're
Again,
bracing
I'm a big
for what
believer
becomes
in the
covered.
truth. If the truth is there was something concerning, then let's hear it. I don't know of anything like that.
All right. I want you to meet, this is Trevor Lyons. He's from Connecticut, a graduate student at Georgetown University.
okay, so-
That's was the next one. So
All right, let me
check
find
out
this
the
other
next
one.
little. Now we're, it's the whole
That
thing's
was a
about
7-minute one, or the 5:30. The next one would be 8:45.
yeah. So this whole thing is an hour long. We're just giving you guys the highlights and we're talking over it because
Oh,
And that
8:45. We
the
broke it
FBI,
back to go to
people around you did
6
everything
or
by the
5,
Yes.
which blended into that
That
one.
doesn't, no doubt in my
Alright,
so
mind,
now
but
I'm
that
gonna
doesn't
go
mean
to-
I'm against review of it. That's totally fine.
So you think the Inspector General will find nothing
No,
inappropriate?
21:45.
by studying
Okay.
closely?
Get to the be risking their career. Very talented.
Audience, we'll go back to the audience to verify. Did Trump the dossier? The audience, we'll go back to the audience in just a
Sorry,
second.
people, bear
I want
with
to
us.
ask you
Here we
about
go.
the Steele dossier. Just today, Rudy Giuliani was raising questions about how well you, the FBI, vetted the dossier. Giuliani tweeted, quote, Comey told @RealDonald Trump that Steele dossier was unverified, but he had it for 5 months after and never tried to verify it. If he did, he would have found out that Steele had not been in Russia for at least 7 years. He deliberately avoided discovering the truth. A, what do you think about what he says, and how much work did the FBI do to verify that dossier?
Yeah, it's false in two respects. First, I told President Trump that the particular allegation about him being involved with prostitutes in Moscow was unverified, but I felt it important that he know about it. More broadly, the Bureau began an effort after we got the Steele dossier to try and see how much of it we could replicate. That
How
work
much
was
they can
ongoing
replicate.
when I was fired. Some of it was consistent
Then I
with
was
our
fired.
other intelligence. The most important part. The Steele dossier said the Russians are coming for the American election. It's a huge effort. It has multiple goals that I've laid out for the audience, and that was true. There were a lot of spokes off of that we didn't know whether they were true or false, and we were trying to figure out what we could make of it.
You said that you had told President-elect, I guess, Trump, that that it was unverified, the salacious aspects about the tapes.
Yeah.
George Stephanopoulos interviewed you 2 years or a year ago when your first book came out, and I just want to play something you said about those tapes.
Okay.
Did you believe his denial?
Honestly, never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes peeing on each other in Moscow in 2013.
But he did know during the interview, people. He knew exactly.
So, I mean, the investigation's over now. Nothing in the Mueller report corroborated that salacious claim about the tapes and prostitutes. Do you regret making those comments, which some would see as sort of stoking the fires, or leaving it as an open question?
No, I was trying to give an honest answer, and my answer would be the same today.
But you could have just said, well, those were unverified.
Right, I thought that's what I was saying. That I don't know whether
that's
a crazy thing to have to say.
That's how it came out of in my head. It didn't sound that way.
There's a
My world,
this
my
dude.
truth. This is how I project it. If you don't believe it, you're
peeing on
wrong.
each other in Moscow in 2013.
No, that's what you said right there.
That's
It's
yeah.
possible, and I don't know.
I mean, the investigation's
Okay.
over now.
So you see
Nothing
that
in
one. So you
report
see the
corroborated
conundrum that's going
that
on here.
salacious
I think there was like
claim
a
about
one
the
more
tapes
on
and
this one
prostitutes. Do
that we
you
looked
regret
at
making
towards
those
the. I think it was
comments,
towards
which
the
some would see as
end
sort
of this one. I
stoking
think
the
it
fires,
was.
or leaving it as an open question.
No, I was trying to give an honest answer, and my answer would be the same today.
But you could have just said, well, those were unverified.
Unverified. Yeah.
I thought I
That's
did.
what I was saying.
That's what I was
I don't
saying.
know whether
Didn't
it's
you hear
true or
me?
not. It's a crazy thing to have to say, because with any other
Let's listen to it
leader,
again, and
leverage
he's
over
like, "Yeah,
the
didn't you hear it?"
president. And second, you don't create the very strange
1622. I don't know if this is on this one.
On Americans to vote Trump out of office in 2020. Why do you think that voters should prioritize Trump's personal flaws over their own economic well-being?
This is a good one.
Well, actually, thank you for the question, but I wouldn't frame it that way. I think we should start where I thought Republicans always said we should start, with the nature and character of the leader and his respect for or attacks on our values, truth and the rule of law among them. That's the most important level in American politics. The level down from that is important policy questions. To my mind, this question at the top level is so obviously answered. You cannot have a president who's a chronic liar. I don't care what your passions around tax cuts or regulation or immigration. I respect difference there. The President of the United States cannot be someone who lies constantly. I thought Republicans agreed with that. It's one of the reasons I'm no longer a Republican. I hope the American people will realize we have to start at that values level, no matter what our political background.
There's so much lying going on.
So now we're gonna. So it doesn't matter what our economy is doing.
Remember this one?
Are we in a constitutional crisis? Is Jerry Nadler?
No, don't clap, people. Come on.
He's feeding.
I mean, I guess they clap whatever, because Biden the other night
There's
was
a
like,
sign that says applause.
yeah. Well, Biden was like, first thing I do when I get in, we're gonna get rid of Trump's taxes that basically gave you guys more per week, and they're all like, yeah.
And then if you stop and think about it, like they actually gave more money per individual. Yet, oh my, it's. We won't go through the math here because we know you guys are too smart for that. It's interesting.
All right, here's this other one.
I think given the standards that we have, especially we in the FBI have, there should have been and was severe discipline around their behavior. As Anderson said, very different episodes of behavior. Everyone has opinions about political issues and religious issues and sports issues. You can't bring them to work and have them affect your work. There have to be severe consequences. FBI employees must tell the truth always. And if they don't, I don't care what it's about, it's going to be investigated and there'll be severe consequences.
Yes,
that's the way it should be in an organization of 38,000. People are going to do stuff they shouldn't do, and a message has to be sent to them.
That's right. That's why you were fired, buddy.
That's right.
He's a fired, disgraced FBI, and he's going around acting like he wrote a book about loyalty and.
It's in my book. It's in my book. It's in my book.
Do you believe it's possible he wasn't even aware of their opinions? He may not have seen text messages, but that he wasn't aware of the opinions that they held about then candidate Trump?
Yeah, that strikes me as reasonable because...
That strikes me as reasonable. The question is, did you know?
Just as they would never let me see that. Because
you never heard from them anything negative about President
Trump?
Never.
And if they had those opinions, which they clearly did in the text, they would be risking their careers to let me hear about it.
This is
because
insanity.
They understood how
this guy's trying to tell you how
if
people
you
don't bring their personal beliefs to work
if Andrew McCabe
and then
had
function off of it.
them expressing those things,
they're trained not to.
I'm confident they certainly wouldn't
Only
be
the
working
best,
on investigations that touched the candidates or the political process at all, and there probably would have been discipline.
So do you acknowledge that this whole
Page and Strzok's whole thing about insurance and stopping them was just a made-up fairy tale that they played outside of work?
That was on their civilian role.
It was in their civilian. They were off clock and they were just having fun.
That was their big boy pants were not on at that time.
This is unbelievable, folks.
Very talented agent. It's a personal tragedy for him, but as much as I care about individuals, I care about the institution.
So you can just see this guy squirming and trying to do word porn on every answer.
James Comey, back in a minute.
All right, I'm going to try to... come on, history. I'm going to try to find this other one. I didn't download. What happened?
Comey, he's also the author of a book,
This is the older one right
Loyalty,
here.
which is now out in paperback with a whole brand new forward. We've been getting questions from our audience. We'll go back to the audience in just a second. I want to ask you about the Steele dossier. Just today, Rudy Giuliani was raising questions about how well you, the FBI, vetted the dossier. Giuliani tweeted, quote, Comey told @RealDonaldTrump that Steele dossier was unverified, but he had it for 5 months after and never tried to verify it. If he did, he would have found out that Steele had not been in Russia for at least 7 years. He deliberately avoided discovering the truth. A, what do you think about what he says, and how much work did the FBI do to verify that dossier?
He's wrong.
Yeah, it's false in two respects.
Yeah, it's false. Yeah, you're wrong in two respects.
The particular allegation.
Let me tell you why he was wrong. First off,
I
say so. End of story.
First off, that guy is unreliable. He lies. Well, didn't you get fired for lying? Well, not in my interpretation. Well, no, I got the paperwork here. James Comey, you were fired for lying. Yeah, see, that's what they all thought. All 380 people over there. But I didn't do it.
That's not my truth, sir.
That's not the truth that I believe in. The truth that I perceive to be the reality that I live in.
Trying to figure out what we can make of it.
So you said that you
all right, here we go. I got another one. Let me see.
President-elect, I guess, Trump, that it was that he did not spend the night in Moscow around the Miss Universe pageant. Since then,
from a year ago, right?
What time was this one? 19.
Posts,
yeah, this is a year ago one, right?
So look
also
at
photographs
the
prove that he actually did
comparisons.
spend the night in Moscow. What's the morally unfit to lead the armed forces of the United States? That was his question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Morally unfit to be president of the United States, which includes commander-in-chief responsibilities.
I want to do a quick follow-up. You had opportunities to stand up to President Trump when you were FBI director. When he talked about saying to you, I need loyalty, or you say he said, I need loyalty, when he said, see your way to letting Flynn go, why didn't you stand up to him face-to-face, speaking truth to power, saying that's inappropriate for you to ask me?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've asked myself those questions a lot. And I'm sure I could have done it better.
That's a great
if
question.
I'd been
I've
better
asked myself that a few
prepared for those
times.
All the
moments.
time.
At the dinner, I think I did a reasonably good job. I gave him nothing but silence when he first asked, and then I interjected to try and explain the roles.
First, you didn't ask the guy's
So I held my
question.
ground
Then you,
pretty
I
well
use the word
there.
interjected because...
didn't you hear me?
Not in those words, no. I think, though, by the end of the dinner, by the time he asked me the second time, a person of his intelligence would know that it was inappropriate to ask that of the FBI director.
You said
different.
You said you were caught
Of
off
his
guard.
intelligence.
The first time I can understand being caught off guard. Once the second time, wouldn't you be prepared for him to say something that? I mean, did you not give it any thought about standing up?
Well, no, I didn't expect him, honestly, to come back to it. But
I didn't
even
expect
after the
him to
first
do one,
ask,
too.
I interjected. I keep saying that because I had to interrupt to explain the importance of
The
distance
the
between
reason I use
independence
that
of the
word
Justice
interject.
Department from the White
know
House and the
that, right?
President. And then when he came back to it the second time.
But when the Flynn thing, that was really the second time.
This is
he said
my
something
truth
that you
that
found
I
objectionable,
believe in.
Right, that was before the loyalty.
was the second time that he asked me something.
Do you see how a narcissist views the world all around them?
It's like, yeah, like Elle said, facts matter, buddy. Not your interpretation of the fact.
It honestly didn't occur to me. Instead, I was thinking, I must remember these exact words, and I don't want to be too tough.
But you don't remember nothing else about what you did. You just remember everyone else's dirty deeds, not yours.
The Oval Office to talk to me alone, including my own boss.
Comey, you broke the law.
So that's the area where I think
my reality of perception of truth I walk on.
After these, when they were released.
When I got out of bed that day, it's not how I interpreted it all.
Which way of the bed I roll out of, brother.
You know what I'm saying. To share some of the details from at least one memo with the New York Times. I want to go to Evelyn Lawhorn, a senior study in government. Evelyn?
Hi, my question was, do you think that there's any credence to the president's claims that you broke the law when you released your memos?
I don't.
I don't.
That won't surprise you. I don't. In fact, I think he's just making stuff up. The memos are actually two pieces, and the details matter.
Memos are just pieces of paper with words in them, okay?
It should matter even to the president.
But you talked to the president, you took secret notes.
Unclassified then, still unclassified.
Still unclassified.
In my book.
In my book.
To my friend Dan Richmond.
Watch how he lays this out.
Get the substance of it, but
watch
not
his
the memo
face,
out to
watch
the
his
media.
nod.
Separately, I wrote a bunch of memos about my interactions with President Trump, and I was what was called an original classification authority at the FBI, meaning I had the training and the authority to make decisions about what should be classified, what shouldn't. Some of those memos I decided should be classified. 4 others, I wrote them and was highly confident they should not be classified.
And they're in my book.
Those 4, I kept a copy at the FBI and a copy in my personal safe at home.
Underneath your underwear.
After I was fired, I put together a legal team of
after I was fired,
one of whom was
I didn't turn stuff back in
at Columbia University.
He's boasting whose lawyers are.
I had asked him to give this information to the media. I separately gave my legal team 4 memos, which were unclassified. They included the one that he had gotten to give the substance of it to the New York Times. The bottom line is, I see no credible claim by any serious person that violated the law. Here's a good thing, though. The Department of Justice is all about accountability. The Department of Justice Inspector General has taken a look at not whether I mishandled classified information, because that's frivolous, but whether I complied with policy as I should in making the memos and in the way I store them.
But as somebody who has the authority to classify documents, you know that stuff is sometimes retroactively classified. And I believe one of the documents was retroactively classified, lowest level classification, wasn't it?
Sure.
So if
Sure. I didn't say that early in the story because I hope he didn't answer.
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up. Sure, yeah.
That you think you know this is not going to be classified, but it turns out one of them was retroactive.
I don't think it was an educated judgment based on your training and
literally
experience.
just stunned him. Hold on. I like this. I got to show this again. Watch how he shakes his head at the end of this girl like he just summed it all up for her. Like, you got it now?
You got it? Talking down to her like,
classified information,
watch
that's
that head nod.
But whether I complied with policy as I should in
I
making the memos and
I
the way I
did.
store them.
But as somebody who has the authority to classify documents, you know that stuff is sometimes retroactively classified.
You know that sometimes stuff's retro. Being that you're an expert in classification. So here, folks, look, I can tell you, these people, like, so we have talked about if you're in a position like Hillary, you went through a lot of see how knowledgeable he is.
He gets expert real quick.
He's an expert, but Hillary had 68 times she couldn't remember on stuff when they had put her up. Like, well, why did you do?
Training these people got to get to these security levels, these upper echelons.
Because she was a classifier too. One with him, she was one of the 38. Now hers would have been above his.
Yes, exactly.
Because
so they had even more training.
Her stuff's like overseas, State Department. His is just
foreign entities.
His is overseas as well. Supposed to be FBI.
Well, there you go. Yep, there you go. They're supposed to operate foreign and domestically. But think about it, you guys. He is an expert. That means he knows more about classification and the policies surrounding what is considered classified than anybody else in that room.
Well, that's what Hillary said. Like, they're like, she said this wasn't marked. She's like, well, it wasn't marked. And it's like, well, you're a classifier.
You're the one who would mark it.
You're the one that after you read it, you'd be like,
no mark.
This is there's no mark though. Well, Hillary, you can do that. I didn't though. So it's like, since I didn't, therefore I'm saved.
Negates your responsibility.
What the hell? It doesn't make sense, folks. This is how they act. And they play on that we don't know these things. Now he's basically telling us, like, so that night that I was at the president's thing, now I've always took it to be if me and you were with the president, or just, I'm sitting there talking and Trump wrote something on a napkin and slid it over to me, it's like considered something.
It's classified.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what that is now because we know the president does have the power to
unclassify
and
unclassify, yeah.
Declass and classify different
Well,
articles.
in his setting, I think that was he got invited to the White House, and I would believe that would have been on
as a guest. Now, if you're there on
it was supposedly
a meeting of something,
Valentine's Day night. No, Trump invited him over for dinner.
So so it was a social meeting, right? Now, if he's going to be dancing between expert and I was a civilian, I'm not a civilian. Well, then what?
Yeah, what clock were you on?
Yeah, you go to a guy's personal dinner and you're talking about how are the kids? Hey, the wife's looking good. You're doing a good job, you guys. She seems really happy. You must be happy.
Are you loyal? That's what ends up going on, all right?
Yes.
And he takes it. It struck me very odd. I took that as okay. But the bottom line is he took notes when he left. He didn't take them in front of Trump. He waited till the minute he got into his car, he's scrambling down things. I want to make sure I remember all this.
Personal safe.
Yes, his personal safe is backup in case, any fire happened at the local branch where I worked out of.
Wink, wink, fire.
But he got fired. So for some reason, Anderson makes a really great point here. And let's listen to this again or in full because we haven't heard it yet, I don't think.
May later on be classified, which happened to.
And his point is like,
I
wrote a book with that stuff in there, and then maybe
it's in my book.
Maybe it came out. Yeah, it's like, well, is that on? They end up retroactor making some of those papers. Yeah, but it was already in my book, Anderson. Don't you think that's kind of on them? It's like no,
they shouldn't have done that. It was in my book.
Yeah, my book, by the way.
He's pushing that big time.
Sir Dan Richmond at Columbia University. Law. Here's a good thing though. Taking the memos and the way I store them.
But as somebody who has the authority to classify documents, you know that stuff is sometimes retroactively classified. And I believe one of the documents was retroactively classified, lowest level classification, wasn't it?
Sure.
So if you're releasing memos which may later on be classified, which happened to Hillary Clinton as well, aren't you taking a risk that you think this is not going to be classified, but it turns out one of them was retroactive?
I don't think of it as a risk. You're making an educated judgment based on your training and your experience as to what's classified and what's not.
But you did leak memos. I mean, is it okay for somebody at the FBI to leak something, an internal document, even if it's not classified? Isn't that leaking?
Well, there's a whole lot wrong with your question, Anderson. First, I didn't leak
there's a whole
memos.
lot wrong.
I asked a friend to communicate the substance of one unclassified memo.
Whether
Can I finish for a second?
Sure, okay.
One unclassified memo to the media, and I was really important. I was a private citizen. I was not an FBI employee at that time.
But it was an internal document. It was a document you had written while you were FBI director. That is a leak. I mean, if you tell somebody, don't give them the document, but tell them what's in the document.
For you,
you got me there, Anderson.
Not to get tangled up in it. I think of a leak as an unauthorized disclosure of classified information.
Really? That's it?
Really?
That's how I thought about it as FBI director.
Really? So you see, he'll play down. Just anything that's an unauthorized to the public. I'm all like, well, a leak could be a leak of anything. It's going out to where it wasn't supposed to be.
This is him explaining how he's not in trouble.
Now do you see he hold on. He downplayed that almost in the one that was 2 days ago, or the first one where he downplayed that college student. Like, okay, you see how dumb you are.
Yeah.
Now he's trying to correct Anderson Vanderbilt Cooper, who's only a puppet for his handlers, making him answer the question. He's like, you see? No.
Well, there's a bunch wrong with your question there.
First of
your
all,
loaded question there, Anderson. Let me break it down to you in 3 steps.
Questions.
Number 1, what is your interpretation of the word the?
And you are wrong.
This is great.
All right, let's continue.
I gotta move my picture. Do it.
We investigated leaks, unauthorized disclosures.
In your memo, when you said that when
he's getting frustrated,
director, that is a leak. I mean, if you tell
somebody is a leak.
Don't give them the document, but tell them what's in the document, that's still a leak, no?
Well, not to get tangled up in it, I think of a leak as an unauthorized disclosure of classified information.
Really? That's it?
That's how I thought about it as FBI director. We investigated leaks.
Interpret it.
So unauthorized disclosures.
Remember? In your memo, when you said that when the president said he was eager to find leakers and would like to nail one to the door as a message,
I said that.
I said that.
Shouldn't you be nailed to the door then? I mean, aren't you a leaker? I mean, you gave up a document that was released to the New York Times. Information from that document released to the New York Times. I know you say it's not classified, but plenty of people leak non-classified information to reporters, and the White House and the FBI gets upset about it.
The FBI gets upset when people make unauthorized disclosures of protected information. There was nothing protected about this. It wasn't classified. It wasn't privileged.
So
when one became classified. Well,
that was a
mistake then?
Team had given had given a friend documents that they were writing that you were involved with and said, oh, you could just tell the New York Times what's in this document, you wouldn't have had a problem with that?
Well, depending on what was in the document.
Well, depending on what is in the document.
But even if
it
it's not
was
classified?
protected information, was it investigative information, was it classified information, was it
See,
grand
now he's
jury
dancing around.
But then why did it become classified? One of them.
I'm surprised that you only.
I don't know. I took it to be it wouldn't
officially a
be,
leak
but
is something
some
that's
other
classified.
experts took it.
Yeah, the reason I hesitate is that's how I think about it as a lawyer and as the director of the FBI. In practice, the term gets applied to a broad range.
In real life,
I
that's not what
intentionally
really
gave this information
happens.
to a
That's only on
friend,
paper.
intending that it be out in the media. I wanted it to get out in the media.
Right.
Oh,
As
he
a private
wanted to
citizen,
get, so
I
he's
could
like
do
he's
that and did
playing
that, just
a
as I've
certain
written
way.
about it in my book.
So is that called a leak? No,
The
a
next
leak
question
is
comes from
what I
Victoria
described.
Lopez.
I wanted to
Victoria
get something
is
out in the media.
she,
Well, wouldn't most people that you
she's a senior
charge them with
studying
leaking
history.
that
By the way, I
they
should
just
also
wanted to
point
get it out in the
you're
media?
gonna be
Well,
co-teaching
I
a
made the
course
determinations
here
that
at
that
William
wasn't
and
their
Mary
reason.
in the fall.
Remember my expert on classified, non-classified?
With the
You
recent
charge people
release
with
of your
leaking,
memos,
don't you?
do
Yes.
still think
Well,
that
can't they
you're
use your
suitable to
excuse?
teach a course
No.
on ethics and leadership, and why?
Oh, so
I
what
do,
was the next one? in
for
this
the
video?
reasons I
Now,
said.
remember,
That
this
was
one
really matter.
This one's from
and
a
I
year
believe that I
ago. So do
acted
you see how he's
appropriately,
already
and
trying
I handled the memos
to
appropriately
set it up? And then look at Vanderbilt's looking the same way
purpose.
a year
I
ago,
really
wearing
don't
the
see,
same
and I'd be happy to
suit,
debate
same
it with
tie,
anybody. We
same
can debate it in
comb
my
over.
class.
This is round
Because my
2 of
mind
the
is open
garbage.
to other
Look at
points of
this.
view,
I think
but I don't see it, honestly.
this was a good one. This was right
So
after
something else that was in
that
the
girl's
memo
question.
to
Listen.
William and Mary in the fall. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay, cool.
Right
Victoria?
Good evening. With the recent release of your memos, do you still think that you are suitable to teach a course on ethics and leadership, and why?
I do, for the reasons I said. I mean, the facts
lied.
really matter.
I mean, my perception
And I
is
believe
lying.
that I acted appropriately.
I believe.
And I handled the memos appropriately.
Well, I believe I got an A in your
For
class,
appropriate
Comey, that you taught.
purpose.
You
I
know.
really don't see, and I'd be happy to debate it with anybody. We can debate it in my class, because my mind is open to other
Read
points
my
of
book.
view. But
My
I
mind is other points of
I wanna
view
ask you
where I
something else
could
that
be
was in the
wrong.
memos.
I'm
It
open
was
to
revealed
that.
The president,
As
in
a liar
conversation
would
with you,
try to
according
step
you, made
out
a
of
joke
his-
about how journalists might change their minds about revealing their sources if they spend a night in jail. You laughed in response. What's funny about jailing journalists?
nothing. I laughed to make it clear that was a joke. It was my way
Oh,
of communicating.
so everyone got it wrong. Oh, again.
The next question is from Julia Wick. She's a junior who's studying
This guy's
English.
rough,
and,
dude.
she has a question about some of the allegations in
He
this
thinks
deal.
we're real stupid.
Hi. What do you think would happen if there were so-called P tapes and they were leaked to the public tomorrow? Would it matter in the long run?
That's a question that, first, I'm not going to say that word.
Okay,
that's a question that
You already did.
you
You just did by not
Back
saying
in
it.
no, the old one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
suppose it might matter in the long run to the extent it casts embarrassment and shame upon the leader of our country. But you'll be able to
Obama,
judge
yeah,
that
that's
better than
gonna
I.
happen. Yeah.
You also said in your memos that the president told you twice that he did not spend the night in Moscow around the Miss Universe pageant. Since then, flight records, social media posts, congressional testimony, also photographs prove that he actually did spend the night in Moscow. Do you think it's significant that the president lied to you twice about that?
It's always significant when someone lies to you, especially about something you're not asking about.
'Cause
It
a
tends
liar
to reflect
knows
a
a
consciousness
liar.
of guilt, as we would say in law enforcement.
You've noticed
would
that
say.
in past interactions as a prosecutor, if someone's lying about stuff you haven't asked about, that's a tell?
Right, two tells. If they bring things up you didn't ask about, and if they bring it up and make a false
Kind of
statement
like your
about
expertise on
He's
being
trying to bring, like,
classified
certainly
and
makes you
non-classified.
very concerned
Yeah, see,
about what might be going on there.
CNN
President Trump
here.
did that a lot of times with
I
you
see
brought
the
up
angle
stuff
now.
that you haven't asked about.
I just saw it.
Correct. And again, I don't know what was in his head. I don't know whether he was intentionally misstating a
No,
fact
this
to me,
one's
or
from
maybe
a
when he
year
said it to
ago.
me, he thought he had stayed overnight. But he said, that he thought he didn't stay
This was
overnight.
the
But he
cover
definitely
after he
This
got
was-
fired.
yeah.
Too.
Next question is from Carl Friedrichs. Friedrichs. He's a professor of
You
marine
see,
science here at William and Mary. Carl?
Trump said he
Hello?
thought he didn't.
What else do you think Putin might have on Trump that makes Trump so reluctant to criticize Russia?
See,
do you
this
think
guy,
it might
that's a
be proof
control.
that Russian
Nah.
organized crime money has been laundered through Trump's businesses?
I don't know, and I'm
That
not
guy
in a
Yeah, guy's a
position to
CIA.
speculate.
CIA.
As I said, I was struck
That's slick.
that the
That's
president-
slick.
I thought this was all
Spooky.
students that were supposed to. That guy, well, he's working on his
And then I was very struck
masters.
that he was
Phil, as we all
criticizing
call him.
private. What's behind
Phil's
that, I
working on his
honestly don't know.
masters.
You've used the word,
What
you
does
said
still do in
it's
the
possible
daytime?
many times. Do you think, right now you're saying, I don't know. Do you think it's possible?
Yes, yeah, I just don't know. And
it's possible.
I try to say it's possible because I want to be complete and accurate. I can't rule it out.
No, he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to pin down his answer because he's like, I told you I didn't know.
I want to be accurate. So if people go back in a year, 2 years from now, they could watch this and see, oh, he's accurate guy.
He's accurate. Look, he denied about not knowing and knowing.
So did you leak stuff? I can neither confirm nor deny that, Anderson.
So we can. I mean, we can see this. We balancing these two videos off one another. Do we have any more in this one video?
Damage will be done.
That's it. We'll be done with that, little guy. We're already an hour in. Check this out. That was crazy, folks.
I do want to do one little clip. Quick thing of a guy called Yuri Bezmenov.
Yes. Let me pull that up.
This is only, and we'll go to type in Yuri Bezmenov explains how brainwashing an entire nation. It should be a 8-minute 55 clip.
How do you spell Yuri?
Y-U-R-I.
Oh, that one. Yep, Yuri.
Bezmenov, B-E-Z-M-E-N-O-V, and probably that should pop up.
How to?
Yep. And then go to exactly the 30-second mark and start it from there. That should be.
This is the 8-minute one.
It should be 8 minutes and 55 seconds or something like that.
Yes, and I've seen this before because if you guys are familiar with.
Now let's just go from Yuri Bezmenov was a KGB agent that worked in the
KGB
60s
or 50s and 60s.
50s and 60s, and he went over to India. Was his first actual mission to go in there and blend in, and they subverted that poor country and through.
And this is just a way to show you how other countries even operate, all right?
Well, he disinfected to America, and he started he became a professor, and he taught.
This is the way it works everywhere.
From mind control, pretty much. Check it out.
So.
Our conversation is with Mr. Yuri Alexandrovich Bezmenov. Mr. Bezmenov was born in 1939 in a suburb of Moscow. He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing
That's what's going on now.
Process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages.
I'll check it out.
The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous
that they go
success.
off of, folks. This is a playbook of how to attack. Like
Americans too.
they're doing this over there, then they're like,
of moral standards. As I mentioned before,
this is what we're supposed to do, I guess.
It works well in Venezuela, all the Central American countries.
A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts
cognitive
tell
dissonance.
Nothing to him.
They can't get
even if I
truth
shower
and they
him
can't
with
process it
information,
correctly.
with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures. Even if
Proof.
I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization. So the next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. It's what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas...
He's talking about Obama's policies, by the way.
sensitive areas as defense and economy. The influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world that the process will go that fast. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis.
Listen.
To promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth. To destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in the United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course. They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they may turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison,
Venezuela
or one
right
of them
now.
split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. It's divided in 4 basic stages: demoralization, destabilization, crisis,
Normalization.
DDCN.
DDCN.
So
now.
They will be lined up against the wall and shot.
You'd be lined up against the wall and shot.
Oh, that was it. Real quick, let's go into this now. Now, pay attention. This is what they're doing to Trump out of the playbook.
1943, the following directive.
So
In
wait, what'd he say?
1943,
1943.
in 1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States.
From party headquarters to all communists.
Yes, where was the party headquarters? Russia. I mean, so think about, if you're talking about Ruski and communism and this kind of stuff, this was going on well before 2019, people.
All communists in the United States. It read
to all of them in the United
communists
States.
In the United States.
Okay.
It read, when certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable buildups. All communists
Trump's the
in the United
obstructionist.
States. It read, when certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable buildups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic.
Oh, we've heard
Or
that about
racist,
Trump. Or
bigot.
neocon.
There's
or
newer words.
Oh,
This is,
yeah,
you know.
xenophobe, he's this and that.
And use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact
pause this real
in the
quick.
public.
So they've compared Trump to like the Nazis. Remember having a bad smell, like oh my gosh, and so they're associating like oh he's just like Stalin. Is this guy? He's a Nazi. Do you see how they're comparing him to these bad,
well-known,
evil,
Hitler was the biggest one. It was Hitler.
Of course,
Hitler.
Yes, Hitler. The Nazis. They're so Nazi. Yet they're preaching Marxist, socialistic value. So it's just amazing.
Yeah, it is. And it's only got a couple seconds left here.
Repetition become fact. They have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact.
So that was the Russia-Trump collusion for 2.5 years.
In the public mind.
Russia-Trump.
In the mind. What do you say?
Repetition become fact in the public mind.
There you go, in the public's mind. So that's a well-known one. Hitler did it as well. Say something often, repeat it often, and then it kind of becomes...
And so we have what ties in this last video, and I think this is the kind of wrap-up on this one, is finishing up with the J. Edward Griffin state on the whole subverting, and then the very first one, Operation Mockingbird, asking the CIA if they had people in the media, people in the news getting
and if they
paid
did it then,
directly,
and it worked, and it worked, they're not going to stop it. They're only going to get better. They're going to create whole networks. Like back then, it was like, we used to get a guy here and a guy there. Now we own this one, and we hire normal people to do some normal things, And
so, and you have the whole optics of that kind of stuff, and exactly. So this tactics of not only bringing down a nation, you can do it. It's too expensive. It's too much work for bullets and bandages anymore. Because what wars now are more fought by drones. I mean, let's just be honest now. Most of the crazy strikes we saw on all the news medias for years and years and years, for the most part, all the craziness was fought by bombers and drones. And yes, there were many operators who did many crazy things. That being said, it's easier to demoralize, destabilize, getting them to crisis, and then what was the end one was those three Bezmenov normalization, and that can go on indefinitely. That means this is how it is, and they're saying what? Give up your guns because the government will take care of us. So we're gonna give up our freedoms for perspective of security.
You just got to think like their thing. We have gone with Trump. It was he's like you said, he's mentally unstable. He's physically not fit. Is he going to die in a few years? I mean, it was like he's mentally, physical. He's a racist. He grabs women by the day. They have tried everything, folks. He doesn't, to get it into the heads. Because when all this comes out, all the breaking, like we said, it's like, wait, my head hurts because I thought it was Trump in Russia, not Hillary in Russia or the DNC in Russia. Wait a minute, no, this guy's got to be he's got to be Hitler.
Yeah.
He's pulling,
he's racist. You know, and they make us kind of exactly. Listen, generals in 2019 of our American military and other military still study General Sun Tzu's Art of War book that was written 1,000+ years ago, and that's still relevant to battle strategies today. And it also talks about asymmetric warfare, fooling your enemy. They think we the people, the constitutional empowered people given inalienable rights by our creator is their enemy. Like literally, we've talked about the Organic Act of 1871. They have the right for invaders. Who are the invaders? The states. Holy crap, you know what I'm saying? So when we see this kind of stuff and we see that there's a narrative, we always want to make you guys aware of, it's an old and ancient playbook. It's called deception. Countries have done it to other countries. People have done it to each other. Men do it to women. Women do it to men. It all involves trust. And what they do is they want to get your trust by I look good, I talk good, and you believe what they say because they're saying it well. And it really goes back to cognitive dissonance. They're instilling a certain belief in your mind while all the time the reality of what's really truly happening is bouncing off you. Oh, Yuri Bezmenov told you, I could drag you to Russia and pull you to the gulags and show you the camps of them working and dying because they're working 20 hours a day and they're not feeding them. You'll see, but you still wouldn't believe it. And so what he's describing is this mechanic, this mechanism that this can only be ran at governmental levels. Mike and I can't do this out of the studio here, and so what we're going to do, Mike, we're going to do propaganda videos. We're going to pump it into every major news organization. By the way, the owners of the news organization have handlers as well, and we're going to pump in questions for certain interviews. I mean, you guys understand this whole thing. They don't perceive is that they're doing anything wrong because they view the American public as dumb cattle, literally as farm animals that can't be responsible for their own rights.
We can't make our own decisions.
Yes.
Let me see here.
I agree. Exactly. It's like, when you start looking at what's happening currently, this isn't nothing new. And to deceive yourself to think that what you're doing or what you're seeing is something so incredibly new and the left is doing this or the right's doing this, when the reality of it is when truth comes out, you have to be aware of what it is. Or when you're watching, like when we did the one clips of Mr. Vanderbilt Cooper asking Comey about certain things, and Comey, he's looking down, he's trying to obfuscate the question, or he's trying to belittle the person asking the question to make himself somehow appear at a higher expert level than this other person.
Yeah.
Therefore giving him the authority and
don't ever listen to people like that.
Yes.
Somebody that's like,
it's wizardry.
300 of us here and agree that you said this. Well, I'm sorry that you all took it that way, but there's no going any more forward with that person. Okay, I finally found this. This will probably be one of the last things we could talk over this a little bit. Actually, let's listen to the first minute here.
Will allow Attorney General William Barr to decide whether Special Counsel Robert Mueller appears before Congress. President Trump then highlighted some of Mueller's conflicts of interest.
And Bob Mueller's no friend of mine. I had conflicts with him. We had a business dispute. We had somebody that is in love with James Comey. We like James Comey. They were very good friends, supposedly best friends. Maybe not, but supposedly best friends. You look at the picture file and you see hundreds of pictures of him and Comey. And with all of that and other things, he wanted the FBI job. I don't know if anybody knows that, but as you know, he was considered for the FBI job, wanted it. And the day after he didn't get it, he became the special counsel. That's a conflict.
Joining us tonight to examine much of all of this, Victoria Tensing, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division of the Justice Department, Joe DeGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, the founding partners of the DeGenova and Tensing law firm. Folks, it is great to see you. And let's start with the most recent reporting. John Solomon in The Hill, again, giving us a date certain that the special counsel knew that there were problems with the so-called, Trump dossier, the fraudulent dossier. And then we have sort of the suspicious sealing of that document just a couple of weeks ago by Christopher Wray at the FBI. Your reaction to both?
Hey, Lou, that was retroactive classification, which is so rare. In other words, when everything was hitting the fan, all of a sudden the FBI decided that they were going to hide this memo. Now, listen why this memo is important. It was written by a Deputy Assistant Secretary, Kathleen Kovalek. She said, wrote to the FBI what her meeting was with Christopher Steele, and believe me, it was not good. She evaluated him immediately and said that he was political and he was untrustworthy. And we can name all the different things that she spelled out for him, including that Michael Cohen was in Prague, that there were Russians paying people to hack computers in the United States, and they were being paid out of the Russian consulate in Miami, but there's no Russian consulate in Miami. So the State Department, I mean, of all people, figured out that he was a fraud and told the FBI.
Yeah, and Joe, with the knowledge that there was not a collusion case, why would a special counsel not have said something well in advance of the 2018 midterms? Isn't there a responsibility to do so, since that was his principal charge? Your thoughts?
Absolutely, Lou. Robert Mueller's performance in this has been a disgrace. He has besmirched the reputation of the department yet again. And the reason is, when you sit down and you read the 400-plus pages of that special counsel's report, it is sophomoric, it's adolescent, its legal analysis is, at best, first-year law school. And it is a smear job of the President of the United States. Everything that's in there that has nothing to do with charging anyone should never have been in the report. It's fairly obvious that the Weissman report, as we call it, was done for one reason only: to smear the President, to create a political problem for the President, and to have happen what is absolutely happening now with the nuts in the House of Representatives, to make trouble for the President. Mr. Mueller should be ashamed of himself.
And Lou, I'd like to go back to John Solomon's story, because it's really a significant story that should, I'm sure it has legs. And here's the issue. With all of this known by the FBI about how bad Christopher Steele was, and with Bruce Orr also telling the FBI in August of 2016, the FBI signed a FISA
top
authorization.
DOJ official Bruce Orr, right?
And yes, saying that Christopher Steele was not only credible, but they didn't have any bad information about him. Nothing derogatory about him. They swore that to the FISA court.
So at this point, it's clear, I think, to most people that the Democrats stole an election through collusion with the special counsel's office. There seems to be not much room for another interpretation here.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that now, Lou. As everything else is becoming clear about how there was a brazen plot to frame the President of the United States, it's also true that that plot included figuring out a way to harm the Republicans in the 2018 election cycle, and they indeed succeeded in doing so. And so that is why the Democrats are what they're doing on the Hill. They are doing that as a diversionary tactic away from the inevitable conclusions of the DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz, who, by the way, we have learned has concluded that the final 3 FISA extensions were illegally obtained. The only question now is whether or not the first FISA was illegally obtained, and he apparently, as a result of those disclosures from John Solomon today, which he was unaware of. The Bureau hid those memos from Horowitz. As a result of that, they are doing some additional work on the first FISA. It may be that all 4 FISAs will have been obtained illegally.
Chris Wray is hiding Jim Comey's sins. That's what's going on there.
He has, it would seem, at least to me, potentially a significant liability here, legal culpability. Would he not?
Are you talking about Comey?
I'm talking actually about Christopher Wray.
Well, Christopher Wray's liability is political because he's an empty suit. He came from King and Spalding in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where Sally Yates went after she left. That'll tell you something about King and Spalding in Atlanta. Christopher Wray is a get-along, go-along guy. He's got nothing going for him, and he hates conflict. And listen, he loves Comey and Mueller. He's one of their closest friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's so incestuous. It's extraordinary. And William Barr standing against all of the hateful nonsense in that Judiciary Committee.
Yep.
It's painful to watch, and for him to put up with it. And by the way, I know now, after watching him in just a couple of hearings, it's pretty clear why they wanted, the House Judiciary Committee wanted their attorneys on staff to question him rather than risk their own public image. They wouldn't have done well.
Well, Bill Barr's a great attorney, a great man, and the president made a fabulous choice.
Joining us tonight, Sebastian Gorka. He is a Salem radio host, author, former strategist to President Trump, great American. Good to see you. And my goodness, you didn't have to dress up just for us tonight.
You are the only person I would leave a gala on Capitol Hill in defense of the Constitution for. This is for you, Lou.
Well, thank you very much, and I am deeply in your debt.
Right. We're back. Folks, we were watching it right along with you. So what do you take about that? That was basically what we summed up in some of the beginning here. That was somewhere where I got the information. So that is going to be huge when it breaks. Horowitz was lied to. They hid paperwork from him. They had what was it, the lady? Was that the lady that interviewed Steele? Or they got I think they sent an FBI lady over to get like a, what would you call it, an interview with him or whatever, an assessment. And her assessment was that he's political. He's a liar. He's all these things.
Well, it's almost like somebody say, hey, you can have a guy, you can go check him out. This is his backstory. He's done this. He's done that. You see, this is what we have. This is truth. This is what evidence. Not what my evidence. This would be like your medical jacket. If you had enough clearance, you'd be like, I want to see what this guy's military jacket, I should say. And then it's like, oh, I see here he served in this. Oh, you did demo explosives, I see. And they can start getting all the training you've been through, and thus deduce the type of person or the potential. You guys getting tracking the point here, right?
They were trying to basically fill him out to see if he was a credible source for this dossier, and the lady was like, "No, it's horrible. He's a liar. This can't be at all." And instead of using it in the FISA courts, they just buried it. They took that, they classify that for 25 years, whatever.
That judge can't see it because it's classified.
And then these people went that knew and read that. They're like, well, since it's buried and this judge should never be able to really get in there.
Don't tell.
We don't know anything.
You know that one.
So there you go. I mean, that alone is
that's
a certain group of people wanting something to happen, and they made sure it happened. There you go. Now, did you guys make up the whole story? No, we would never do that. Each step of this, they're gonna try to, wherever they can get off the bus at to get out of trouble, they'll get off at. So,
I'm telling you, yeah, exactly. So this is almost a culmination of. You can see what they were doing way back in the day. You can see this has been going on for hundreds of years, nation after nation. It's only gotten more technically more refined. When you do something for a long period of time, you become very, very good at it. And so I think this whole entire episode, this show was about understanding the lies, the deceptions.
So we had lies, spies, Surveillance, you can make up the words, folks, but yes, that's what we it just blows my mind.
If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, I'm going to call it for what it is. And so you can call it advanced situational.
I agree with Leader McConnell. This case is closed. The Russia-Trump collusion, the Mueller report cleared it. That was made up of all Democrats with Mueller. People were kind of nervous these last couple. I don't know, that's a lot of Democrats.
Yeah.
And these people, the deep state Democrats, couldn't even get their other Democrats to give them bull crap to get Trump. I mean, and now they're not happy with that. They're not going to attack their fellow counterparts, but they're just going to keep attacking Trump here. So we are witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard, the old norms, the old ancient hope. And if you're for that, then you are on the wrong side of all this. You are part of you're part of the underlying problem. All right, let's do that.
Underbelly of the deep swamp that we're draining the plug on and calling out.
That's right. So I'm gonna give Ben the last word here. He's a guest here tonight in studio, which is awesome because he'll be on this week. He'll beam in most likely, but let me see here. There it is. All right. Yeah. Any words for the people?
No, I just was saying that I was really grateful. These people like obviously Jaber Griffin, Yuri Bezmenov. These are the people that Mike and I. Some of you guys had asked earlier. What do you guys talk about in Garage Talk, and what do you guys do? What do you guys research? Well, we're researching all areas of topics regarding spying, subversion, deception, lying. And so you guys wanted to know, what we do and how the people we tend to say, hey, where have we seen this pattern before? Oh, I know this, back in the day, this kind of stuff, and so people like Yuri Bezmenov, Griffin, these people have been out saying these things for years and years and years. And Mike and I, think about this is like, you don't know what to make for dinner tonight, but you go with the tried and true burritos because this is easy to make and blah, 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 blah. Whatever's your tried and true tradition. Hey, these guys are like Mike and I's tried and true getting back to the basics of investigating on what's going on, So we're glad we were able to get that to you guys today. Another great show, man. And be aware that...
We'll do some shout out here's on the way out. People are...
No, for sure.
Got Simone LS roll call. Who's eating what tonight, she said.
Who's eating what?
I'm getting hungry myself here in a little bit.
We're trying to dish
What's
some
up,
truth.
drilling all night, guys? Love you, Danielle. Daniel Bird.
Let's see what we got here.
Thumper Rose. Heart Ben.
There you
still
go.
got that cougar crush.
Hey.
We
don't know where Woodman's at tonight.
Hey.
Stardust 3 and 8.
Woodman, if you're out there.
Oh, Woodman.
Give us a call, brother. We ain't heard
like
from
a lion's mane. He's
Reach
Woodman.
out. No, he's probably busy. No.
He's moving and grooving, folks.
He's moving and grooving. At Grilling, what's up? Pork steaks and something. I'm gonna have pork chops and applesauce.
Eric Morris is eating cocaine and drinking wine. Okay, all right. Well, someone's gonna be jacked up and yeah. We've been talking food. Mary Lindsay saying sweet.
Come on, Aaron. Hey, Amy the mods in the house.
Missing you at Grilling, says Amy. Yeah, I mean at Grilling, anything outside the grill, no matter if it's from the south, from the east, the west. Up north at all.
Beans don't burn in the kitchen. Fish don't fry on the grill.
You know what I'm saying. He knows what I'm talking about. Grandpa C, man, I'm getting more well-rounded. At the belly especially. Got to be careful. Well, hey, it's the winter weight, right? It's going to be coming off a little bit. You'll be out there. The spring is coming. The body weights is shedding.
Fish don't fry in the...
In 1943, the following directive was issued from...
Hey, man, it's been great for you guys, man. I really appreciate being in the studio for sure. I had a great show. Always having a lot of fun out here, and it was really able to work out. And I know you got, Mother's Day coming up, so happy shout out to all the Mother's Day, all the mothers, and those of you who have helped create a life or adopted a life. I think at that point in time, I think it was about the 2 criterias that can, fit you in the category of motherhood. I know there's myriad of other ones, but I think tomorrow's based on those who have helped create a life, or you adopted a child and you have helped raise a life, or you know how it goes. There's other variations of that. So take it for what it is.
All right. We'll shut this one down. We've been going like Kept on Ben here forever, huh? There you go. All right, gave him some time.
Some of that FaceTime.
Folks, I'll say this. Why, we got the list here, LOL Woodman. Why doesn't Trump wear glasses?
Because he can see.
Because he already has 2020.
Done. Questions over.
Because he already has 2020.
We're moving on.
He already has 2020. That's why. Why doesn't Trump wear glasses? He already took 2020. He's already got 2020. All right.
Been covered.
Moving on. 2020 election. See. All right. You guys got it. There you go. Right. Take it. Use it. Spread it around. No, I was joking. All right, you guys. We're gonna shut this one down. It's been great. We'll see you back on the next Patriot Hour. God bless. Godspeed, each and every one of you worldwide. Great to have Ben, and we'll have him on again this week if he can do it. Sometime this week we'll do our live show during the midweek like we normally do, or early week, something. Maybe a couple of them. With everything kind of going down, it's easy enough. I was telling Ben.
There's a lot more rolling out for sure, coming out for sure.
We're gonna have a hard time covering everything. Like flipping coins. Who am I gonna cover tonight? Comey or McCabe?
Hopefully it's gonna be crazy.
We're gonna have
popcorn.
I've already ripped some bags of popcorn open and ate it.
Which means things are happening.
Celebratory. It means things are happening. And that's the way I interpret it in my mind.
How I walk my truth, I see and perceive in my bubble of reality.
That's my truth. And that's what I'm living by. And I've seen arrest already. No, nobody's been arrested yet. That's how I see it.
I'm projecting in the future. You know how I feel.
Welcome to my world, all right?
Gosh.
So I perceive it.
You guys gotta love it. You gotta love it,
All right, we're just acting Comey-ish.
Yeah.
Don't be so Comey-ish.
I know.
All right, you guys. Again, and I'll say this to close it out. James Comey, you have the right to remain silent, and boy, oh boy, you really should be just shut up right now and wait until that day that you are up there, because then you're going to be talking, or maybe not. But either way, you have the right to remain silent. I don't know if you knew that, working for the head of the very top of the FBI.
And spoiler alert, they can and will use it in a court of law. Just a spoiler alert.
Shut your pie hole.
Shut that pie hole. Go homie.
All right, you really did muffle the FBI and muddy it up a little bit. You really tainted it. Shame on you, you un-American patriot, you expat. You're the expat of the month of May.
That's more of a pat riot. Going crazy.
Expatriate. All right. All right. We'll see you guys here real soon on the next Patriot. Don't be a hatriot. Patriot.
Headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind.